Hello, everybody. Hey, welcome. This is an amazing opportunity, but I'll be taking it slowly because we don't want anyone to get hurt. Actually, we're healing. We're trying to heal this afternoon. It's been amazing listening to what's been said and preparing what is to be said. And there is still a lot because we're enhancing everybody's voice, as you know. And we're, I would say, I couldn't call it cheating, but it's a little unfair what we're doing here. And unfair in a way that if we're here, if we're online, internationally, worldwide, present in the room, then we're already taking a stand. We're already positioning ourselves because we want to be part of some kind of change. We want to be aware. We want to know what's going on. And it's not us that we want to change. We want to change the others who are not aware. But theoretically and in practice, in real time, this is a sustainability meeting. It has been. It was 2 years ago, amazingly, and it's this year. These last 2 days and today have been amazingly putting sustainability on the spot, in the center of all attentions. But what is sustainability? And where is it in a chronological point of view if we're facing humanity, if we're facing what we can do to change? Where I want to get at is that one of the pillars that we could start by when we talk about sustainability is dignity. One of the pillars of humanity, and we're talking about our planet, our home, and humankind. And if we want to go towards dignity, then we should be talking about everybody. Then we should be reaching out in terms of information, education, opportunities, thoughts to everybody. Can everybody take a stand nowadays? Can everybody make a choice? Can everybody know about sustainability? No. There's more than half of the world that doesn't even know about it, about the idea, about the concept. So what we have to do is really focus on what we can do to change that. And in order to change that, then we'll be leaving no one behind. And then we'll be enhancing everybody's voice. And that's exactly what we're doing here today. And we'll be starting with dignity, with the enhancing of it. And we'll be starting with the CEO for Ageas Portugal, Stephen Braekeveldt. And I'm sorry, I'm looking to the side because I was checking if Stephen was here. Stephen Braekeveldt, are you there? We want to start with your speech. We want you to embrace this everybody voice that we want to listen to today.
Good. Well, I don't know if I'm in the same room as I was present, and good afternoon to everybody. I don't know if I'm in the same room as I was present yesterday, but I would like to invite everybody to look just behind me all over the screen and to admire the Correia from Portugal, which is and the magnificent azulejos against the wall, because I think everybody is looking to the screens and is missing sometimes the beauty of what is around it, and I think it's worthwhile looking at it and admiring also the history of it. The second point is that sometimes I feel myself like a rabbi in a synagogue, or a priest in a Catholic or Protestant church, or an imam in a mosque, or a master in the temple, because I know that actually I'm preaching or saying something to the believers. There's nobody here in the audience probably who is coming and who is against kind of restoring the earth. And so it's talking to the believers, but it's also good to connect, of course, and to listen to each other, deep listening of what's ongoing. And that was also one of the topics yesterday. This session will be a session about enhancing the voice of those actually we don't hear or we don't hear enough. And then I'm going to, and I hope that my slideshow will work. Let's see. You see the next slide probably, yeah? Can confirm?
Yes, we are watching it.
Okay. So I'm going to talk, it is in the power, I believe, of every person and every individual to to give voice to one person, two persons, a village, or even a nation. And the man I show here, maybe many do not recognize him on the picture, but he gives voice to all the gang-raped women and girls of East Congo in the area of Bukavu. And he's called the doctor who repairs women. This is something, he's a person I have a relationship with already for many, many years. I think it's about 10 years. Dr. Mukwege, who received the Nobel Prize of Peace, I think 3 years ago. And that is somebody who enhances the voice, who gives actually a voice to all these women who have been chased, who have been gang raped by the militia in East Congo in exchange for coltan, which is in each mobile phone that we have in our pockets. And so you see that actually it is really possible for one person to change the lives of many. And he not only repairs women physically, but he gives them a new life as a woman, and he gives them hope. And there are thousands of women he has been giving hope in giving them a new job and a whole direction in which their villages have been destroyed and everything. And if I'm talking with him and standing next to him, I think sometimes you feel very small. And this is one of the men, if you are looking to it, where actually myself, I feel so small, even in all the little things we're doing. This is a man who gives voice to many, many, many people. And there are many of them. Many of these people, you have Rosa Parks, who is a lady who just changed the world, who gave voice to all her people by one day sitting on a different place in a bus. She changed as one person the voice. Greta Thunberg, how young she is changing and giving voice to the young people what they really want. Jacques Cousteau was one of the first ones who I recall when I was a kid, I loved to watch Jacques Cousteau because he was giving voice already in those years, a long time ago, what was going wrong with our earth. And he was giving voice to the earth, to the seas, to the fish, to everything that was living and that didn't have a voice. But he was the voice for that. David Attenborough, another one. Mother Teresa, another one. Gandhi, Vesalius. I mean, these are all people who are really changing the world. And actually one of the starting messages is that one person can change the world. It is a fact that we have to take up every time that this is a reality. And actually, today, you will also see here in the panel afterwards, these are people, individuals, who each one are changing the world and giving voice to many who are not heard. But you will hear to that in the panel afterwards. But let's not stop at individuals. I think it's very important for everybody to know that also companies really can make a choice, can make a difference, and that it depends what you're doing. Let me go to the next one. So companies, you have the B Corp Corporation, you have the B for Good leaders, you have so many organizations of companies that are looking at how to change it. We have the sustainable IFRS standards that are being developed. So there's a lot going on in the world. And one central theme, really central theme in all of this, I believe, and it's very important to stress that, is radical collaboration. Radical collaboration, why? Because we cannot do it alone. There are problems that are so big that even as an individual, even as a company, even as a nation, we will not solve it. We need radical collaboration with the unsuspected ones, and that's at least something that we here also in Portugal with Ageas are doing. We have relations with many organizations, House of Beautiful Business, Singularity University, Nova, Maze. Some relations are very deep or very profound or nearly on a daily basis, some are less, but all the time with the awareness that there are problems that we cannot solve alone, impossible. And therefore we need to work with so many different companies which are even that people outside here in Portugal are saying, what is Ageas Portugal doing with that company? Well, we're working always together and trying to find solutions to problems which are too big for us to solve. But I must say that radical collaboration is not enough. Actually, it is the fact, and this is the big change, it is the awareness, the deep understanding that everything is interdependent. I believe that with radical collaboration, we only will have collaboration. But there is not yet the understanding, if we don't go deep, that everything is interdependent. That means that understanding that it is a need from each one to work together. And once you have this deep understanding of this profound need that companies have to work in a radical collaboration with the understanding that everything is interdependent, then you will get to a situation where you can actually go to KPIs of companies which are only achievable when you work with many together to achieve a KPI which is just trespassing the area of the one company. In companies, it's very clear that you can enhance voices towards your own policies. It's very easy to adapt your policies and to give voice to many, to adapt your strategies, to adapt the policies in a complete different way, to make your sustainability policies intrinsic to your products, to your processes, so that you can actually change behaviors of your customers. So it's proactive management of how you do it in a company. And yes, actually, this is what today you see a lot of pictures. There are a lot of pictures of the fact that profits and sustainability go hand in hand. I mean, you only have to look into the internet and you can see all kinds of pictures, all kinds of theories. But I do believe that we will not make it only with these sustainable factors. Actually, what most companies will have to do, and it's adamant when we listen to Earth, it is the fact that we have to move away, and it may shock some people, we have to move away from sustainability principles to regenerative principles. Sustainability will only allow that we continue what we're doing today, but it will not restore what we have destroyed in the past. And it is possible. You can actually link profits together with the planet and the people. There are ways where you can link KPIs, pure KPIs of departments of a company, like Ageas as well, to link these KPIs on profits and growth in different lines of business with regenerative principles. You link your growth with regenerative principles. I believe this is a subject, a chapter in which most companies have not yet started or just at the beginning. I believe this will be mandatory if you want to have a real impact into society. So this is about how do you go about in managing your people, the planet, and the profit, because profit remains very important. Everybody knows in our company that I'm saying it's not the level of profits you make, but how you make it and what you do with the profit, which is very important. And that will be highlighted more and more also when we look at what will come in sustainable IFRS principles. It will be more focused on how do you make the profit, and your tax levels will be based on how you make the profits. Later, they will even go one step further, but that's still far future. Why I'm saying this? Because it's urgent. It's very urgent that we start all of this. If not us, then who? Because that's the question. If we don't start, and again, I feel like a rabbi or a priest or an imam talking to the believers, because you all know it will be us, and it will be us again, and now. If not now, then when? Well, we all know here around the table that it is now that we do it. And then I also go to my close friend with whom I spent so many hours, which is Ernest Hemingway. He said that now is not the time to think of what you do not have, but you have to think what you can do with that, what there is. And I believe this is also very important, because what there is, if we do not go in the direction of radical collaboration with the understanding that everything is interdependent, I believe that this picture will just go into the memory books. We will not see this again, because it will be far too late. We will continue to see this, which is actually a catastrophe and a disaster for humankind. We will have, and they will not have a voice to speak up. These will not have a voice, and there will be too many of them for too few left if you continue in the same way that we're doing business and economy, you have seen in the previous slides one picture that was referring to the donut economy, which is a new economical theory on how to look and how to combine growth with profits and to restore the earth. We will have more of this, which is today's environment. So again, with this will not stop. It is adamant, and I saw today, I think in the newspapers, that the projections are now that if we continue the way we are all working, the Earth will warm up with the 2.5 degrees instead of 1.5 maximum. So we know what is going to happen. We know that this, in the way, if it goes to 2.5 degrees, this will be reality, and there will be no water left, drink water left for everybody. So, and I think in a couple of minutes, 15 minutes, I wanted to say, in the end, what is important is that each one can make a difference, how small it is, in one person, two persons, a village, a company, a nation, but there is an action plan. I think that we can do the changes. Even if you're a CEO in a company, you can steer, you can lead, you can guide, and you can do processes that goes in the right direction. That was in a very short nutshell what I wanted to say, but I am disappearing in nothing between the people you have on stage who are also actively giving voice to everybody who is not heard.
And what a nutshell it was. Thank you so much, Stephen. It was amazing and especially inspiring, because that's exactly what we're talking about whoever made a difference, how many people, how much can we make as a difference, because we all have impact, even when we don't do a thing, when we're stopped, when we stay at home, when we ignore whatever, when we feel helpless, we're having an impact. We're doing nothing. So thank you for giving this opening and this inspirational speech, and we'll now have our other speakers joining us. Stephen is still joining us for the rest of the talk, so we now have Miguel Neiva, who is the creator and the everything of ColorADD, apart being an Ashoka fellow. And we'll have online Thandeka Tutu-Gxashe from Tutudesk campaign. I think Thandeka is here already. Yes, she is. Hello. And I'm inviting on stage also at this time Kai Troll from AssociationWorld. We'll find out how associations can come together to really make a difference. And we'll enjoy this. Oh, you're enjoying the Portuguese habits, huh? It's two, but we have mics, and so let's head up, because our time is really running, and let's listen to Miguel. Miguel, there's millions and millions of colorblind people in the world, and you've been making a difference, starting by yourself, approaching the theme when nobody else was talking about it, and trying to realize what can I do to give blind people, colorblind people, just a chance to watch colors like everybody else. And that's how it started, but I'll give you the stage.
Okay. Hi, thank you. Before beginning, I want to distribute some glasses, and I help someone to help me. To the audience, I promise to be faster, but I think it's important to contextualize what we are doing. Take one. Sorry. One for you.
Remember, you're all making a difference, so those who are in the room, quote with Miguel, this will be worth it. I can tell it will. I've been through it. And those who are at home, just know that Miguel is spreading glasses, paper glasses with different
I think
colors
all of you already have the glasses, correct? Mm-hmm. You don't have? You have the glasses? Oh, sorry. One for you. Take them. Sorry. Okay. I think that all of you already have the glasses, correct? I have here more.
Because I've tried it.
Who don't have the glasses?
I've done this.
Oh, sorry. I think that you have. Tell me, what do you feel? I don't give you the glasses. Excluded. Okay, take them. Okay. I ask, this is a small provocation, Margarida, one for you.
Thank you.
This is a small provocation to allow that I want that people who received the glasses, if you don't mind, to put the glasses in your face. Who don't have, I have here more. But first I ask to know what you feel, who don't receive the glasses. Sergio, for example, what do you feel? You don't? Excluded. In fact, tell me, you with the glasses, you can identify the difference between these two images and the people who don't have the glasses. You can see the color of this pencil, for instance. In fact, the people who was discriminated is the people who have the glasses. We are talking about something like it's not told usually, but not everyone sees the world with the same colors. I'm talking about the colorblind people. In fact, it exists in the world 350 million people who can see the correct colors. Colorblindness is a non-visible handicap. We're born colorblind, all our life we live with the constraints to don't see the correct colors. There exists a lot of degrees of colorblindness, but incredible, 41% of the colorblind people feel difficult of a social integration, not only the social, but also in a professional integration. What I made, I'm a designer, and all the time I imagine that design can be more to develop beautiful objects. I decided to research during 8 years to find a solution to guarantee the correct integration of these people in a world when 90% of the communication is made through the color. The concept is very simple. It's based on whole knowledge. I imagine that all of us bring from the first school the concept of the color addiction. The professor tell us that exists the primary colors and the black and white, a little box of inks. But the colorblind people confuse the colors. They make confusion between the red, the green, the orange, etc. Even exist people who are born to saw in black and white tones. Incredible. But if the colorblind people can see the correct colors, they can understand the shapes. Well, if they can understand shapes, for each one of these primary colors and most black and white, one graphic symbol. Easy to understand, easy to identify, to integrate visual vocabulary of each other, easy to reproduce in different dimensions, supports or techniques, but most important, easy to mix. Why? Because if we learn, if I mix the yellow and the blue, I have the green. If I mix the symbol of the yellow and the symbol of the blue, I have the symbol of the green. And with only 3 symbols, the colorblind people can identify all the colors. When the color also is important for identification, choose or choose something. And the same way that you mix the black or the white to create the light tones or the dark tones, these 5 symbols can guarantee the social integration of 350 million. The process is resolved, but I don't know where they are. It's impossible to identify 350 million people in the world that don't have here, I'm a colorblind, is a non-visible handicap. But it is impossible to identify 350 million. It's possible to approach this language for 7 billion people with a double purpose. Include colorblind people in the society when 90% of the communication is made through the color, but also guarantee that the society becomes sensibilized for the fact that exist people who don't have, who can see the colors. What I made after, I guarantee the validation of this language is unique in the world. Nothing exists until this moment. And the process to guarantee our sustainability, guarantee that it's possible, create a better world, create the social impact, but also the economical impact, working in co-creation with all the partners who have in the color an important fact for identification, choose, or choice. We put another win in the equation, guarantee that we can work for the common good. Some examples. For example, in the transports, even they have name, more than 52% of the users, the transports in the world, while they have in the color the first fact of identification for the different lines. But also, in the hospitals, the medicines, the triage of Manchester, this code is already implemented in several countries to guarantee that it's possible to live with self-independence, also to save lives, for example, in the beach, the flags, the red flag, the green flag for the colorblind with deuteranopia, it's impossible to understand if they can go to swim or not. This good practice born here in Portugal is already implemented not only in Portugal, but also in Spain, in Greece, in Costa Rica, in some beaches of the United States. A good practice to guarantee that it's possible to scaling for worldwide, promoting a better world. But I'm talking about, last slide, about medicines. Now I'm talking about containers of recycling bins. The color is also important. But we have more examples. The cities. We live in a global world when the color is so important for communication. A lot of cities introduce the code in their maps, in their museums, in all the process to guarantee that with self-independence, a tourist can understand, can identify the colors. More traffic signs. This is here in Lisbon, a pioneer experience that we are made with the City Hall and the ML to guarantee that is to try to understand if it is possible to prevent the accidents, for example, or even in football stadiums. Exists a lot of color to guarantee that you can put your car in the right place, the tickets, etc., etc. More clothes. 90% of colorblind people need help to buy clothes. And the impact is incredible, because not only when they buy the clothes, but also when they have to decide what shirt that they have to dress tomorrow. The color is important. And the Texas labels guarantee that it's possible with self-independence to guarantee that they are using the correct shirt. But school material, the color pencils, and the impact, it was incredible. This company introduced the code in their pencils. This company rescued all the Portuguese market because they are losing for the other brands. Their competitors go and come to introduce the code to rescue the market again. But I think this is the biggest example of co-creation. It's possible, one's money and making it the common good. This is the most famous card games in the world, produced for the most important companies of games in the world, called Mattel. For a colorblind people, it's impossible to play this game with their friends, with their family. But the impact, it was incredible. I have here a small video to show that what Mattel thinks about of this.
But if you're already the market leader, moving the needle is hard. And if you're the most popular card game in the world, it's crazy hard. Thanks in part to its simple universal colors. Everyone is already playing Uno, young and old, all over the world. Or are they? 1 out of 12 men is colorblind. More than 350 million people worldwide struggle with color identification. So, we developed and put into full-scale production an Uno deck optimized for colorblind gameplay. To make it right, we partnered with the global organization ColorADD, utilizing its proprietary color alphabet to add symbols that represent colors.
Uno has launched the first card game ever for the colorblind.
That way, the new product was not only the world's first truly inclusive card game, it also introduced Americans to a new educational tool to support people who struggle with color identification. So it wasn't just the right thing to do, it was a new untapped market, and the market reacted. Year-on-year Uno sales jumped 66%. The story generated more than 130 articles and 70 broadcast stories.
As the world's first card game optimized for the colorblind.
Now makes Uno available to some 350 million people.
Even the Smithsonian Design Museum picked up on it, including Uno ColorADD in its Access Plus Ability exhibition, which kicked off in New York and is traveling to museums worldwide. So now the world's most accessible card game is even more accessible, simply by showing the brand's true colors.
I think that is the proof that it's possible, involve all the stakeholders in the process to guarantee that you can promote a better world. Even this language is very new. We need to teach them for the young child. We also have one app. We can make the download for this free app to identify the colors, to understand, to learning the code. But the ColorADD is already teaching in the schools. And I decide I want to give this project for the schools. I created a non-profit organization. We work in the schools, make a different program, not only to teaching the code, but sensibilize the community through the school community for the impact of the color blindness, prevent the bullying. A young child is victim of bullying, not only with the sensibilization actions, but also work with the kids with these glasses to understand that their friend is not different, is not inferior, is different. They have a new story to tell us. And all of this process will make you also the screening of color blindness. 70% of the colorblind people only discover it after 20 years of age. They live 20 years and doesn't understand why they are being rejected, victim of bullying also through the professor, or even we make the equipment of the school libraries because they use a recommendation by UNESCO and the color is important to identify the different thematics. But not only here in Portugal. I decided to go for another countries like Mozambique, work with the kids, teaching the professors, help them to guarantee the correct integration. Also in south of India, it was incredible, the impact, and of course, to offer material for the young child. It's incredible. And last week, I come from Kenya, when I work in the primary schools in the rural village, and the impact not only for the young child, but also for the community of albinos, because the colorblindness is very strong in that country. And this is the work that me and my team are doing in the last years, and I want to finish with a sentence that I read a few years ago. I prefer to tell them in Portuguese, but I have here the translate in English. And this sentence is for me, is that to make me wake up in the morning because I believe that we can promote a better world, even with the pandemic, the war. I think this is the right moment. We are part of the 7 billion people that together can promote a better world. And the sentence is so simple that is existir é suficientemente escasso. Muito obrigado.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, Miguel Neiva. And we're talking education, we're talking school. Miguel was just all over it, and how can we include through school? And that's through education that we leverage the world, that we get all on the same, on the same level, if possible. We're working on it. So introducing Thandeka Tutu-Gxashe is really exciting because the challenge is immense. I don't know if you know this, but there's just in sub-Saharan Africa, there's a shortage of 95 million desks for school. Just that simple. They don't have desks. So the whole project, the Desmond Tutu Tutudesk campaign, is about, or its goal is about to bring 20 million desks into schools in sub-Saharan Africa. And Thandeka can tell us about it in her precise words and in her experience. Welcome, Thandeka.
Thank you for having me. And hi to the other panelists. I really didn't prepare a presentation for the panel. I assumed you were just going to be asking questions and we were responding, but talking about Tutudesk and what we do comes easy. The fact that just on our continent, on the African continent, 95 million children go to school without desks is a huge problem. It's actually not just an African problem, because globally the figure jumps to 500 million. And that number is the children who are actually in school. Now, when you consider that there are children who may be in refugee camps, or there's been some kind of natural disaster, the numbers are staggering. And the reason why this is a problem is that when you are going to school and you are learning to read and to write, you need a solid surface. Even as an adult, if you are trying to write something on on your lap and you don't have a solid surface there, you know that it's much more difficult, and what you've written is probably going to be wonky if you don't have a solid surface underneath it, you don't have a book or something. But for children who are going into school and learning to read and to write, it becomes a major issue. The part of the problem is that if you consider being literate the ability to read and to write, then if the right part of that equation is not fulfilled, then you are basically semi-literate. And so the problem is that you have these children, 95 million on my continent, on our continent, going to schools and being churned out of the schools and never never fulfilling the right part of that equation.
It's
and
never
so
complete.
we are churning out semi-literate children. And that's a problem. That becomes a problem for the child, for them to get into, either to go into college or university, or to go in, to fend for themselves economically. It becomes a problem for their families, for their communities, their villages and towns, their cities, their countries, for our continent in general, and for the, and basically for the whole world. Because if these children cannot take care of themselves, who is tasked to take care of them?
Of course, and it's a whole generation. Thandeka, and do you, as you go along with the project, do you measure your impact? Do you have already an acknowledgement of what's changing in their lives?
Yes, we do indeed. We actually had AusAid, which is the same as USAID, but it's by the Australian government. They did a major impact study on the desks and whether they actually make a difference, and the results were astounding. I mean, the things that you would expect to get improvement in, in writing skills, in the legibility of the work that the children are producing, be it, in the classroom or at home. But the other thing was that teachers also found the desks useful, because now, instead of having children in a classroom higgledy-piggledy, they helped you have a more streamlined classrooms, whether that classroom was, a regular bricks and mortar structure, or whether the classroom is outside under a tree. So they came, so all of those things that you would expect or you would hope would see an impact, there was an impact. But the one thing that I do like to mention, which was an unexpected finding. What they found was that when desks are provided to schools in a certain community, one of the things that happens is that boys who had dropped out of school, who because conditions are so arduous for them, were coming back to school. And that for me was, a major eye-opener, because then it's the question that comes to my mind is, if the boys are not in school, where are they and what are they doing? Who is influencing them, and who is influencing them in their lives? And so that to me showed that, some of the things that you think you are going to make an impact with, you get something completely different when you actually try to go back and really check on, anyone can come up with a good idea, but one, does it work? And two, what is the impact of it on other issues?
It's amazing how measuring impact, and we've all had this experience, I believe, in this table, can change what you can do afterwards, because you know your path, you know it's worth it. Or you can change if it's wrong. If it didn't work, you can just stop and go somewhere else and share your wrong way, right? And say, don't come this way. We've done this, it's wrong. And it saves time to humanity. It saves time to inclusion. I would like to call Kate-Roll into the conversation now. Kate-Roll is president for AssociationWorld, and you've been developing a global approach, enhancing associations, and you have two major pillars on this experience with the Special Olympics, with Best Buddies. We'll go over that. But especially what you've been doing, dealing with associations, is enhancing them towards the SDGs, the social development, the sustainable development goals, in order to generate awareness, to provoke some inclusion that wasn't even talked about before. Is this the way you're going?
Yes, first of all, thank you very much. Basically, the AssociationWorld, a platform we founded with 6 association and non-profit leaders about 4 years ago. We now entertain a community of 14,000 members, I like to call them fans, because I think we are an open platform. We are not a membership organization where people pay money to, but basically it's an open platform where people exchange ideas and thoughts. And of course the topic sustainability, impact, legacy is one of the discussions that are very much discussed, not only when we talk amongst associations, but also when we organize events. So it's a platform where we provide the opportunity to do knowledge sharing, knowledge transfer, and besides, let's say, monthly workshops that we do in person in the global association hubs of Brussels, Geneva, and Washington. We just founded actually the Washington International Association Forum last week. We're going to have the Brussels International Association Forum just in December now coming up, and the Geneva International Association Forum next June. And the model is pretty much the same. Association and non-profit leaders coming together to discuss impact and growth. So, but what I do is actually less important. The question is what the world can do about inclusion and integration, and we heard some great examples already. Congratulations, Miguel, especially to that. I didn't realize that that actually exists, so I think that is a global cash cow, hopefully, for you and your organization. But basically, I also want to share a bit what we think that nations or governments or corporates can do, but especially maybe also to think what is your legacy of this event and how can you go out and change your mindset towards inclusion and integration when you go out. So can I just see who in your family has a person with an intellectual disability or disability generally? Can I just see some hands? I see 2, 4, 9, 10. I think that pretty much, so first of all, thank you for identifying yourself there. That's about the ratio that we have here, that we have in the ratio. I mean, Miguel mentioned Carlbrand, about 380 million. There are about 40 million people only in Europe. Every 10th to 12th person in Europe who has an intellectual or learning disability. That is the largest neglected people and person group that generally exists in the world, 218 million people. So the question is, why is that the case? And I would like to ask you, there are 17 SDG goals. the theme and topic inclusion, how many SDG goals does that touch? It's clearly 1, but is it 2? Who thinks it's 3 in the room? Who thinks inclusion touches 3 goals, SDG goals? 1 person. Who thinks inclusion touches more than 5 goals?
All of them.
2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, there are more over there. You know much more.
Yeah.
Indeed, inclusion generally touches 7 goals.
17.
Whether it's from well-being to health, to education, to economic growth, to God knows what, sustainable communities and cities. So, and the reason for that is that generally the society thinks that people with intellectual disability are generally taken care of. You know, they are well, they're somewhere, but where do we really see them? And I can tell you where they are. They are either in a home or in a workshop, or some of them are also in institutions. And I think that is actually where we try to make the change, actually getting people with intellectual disability out into society. And what that means is governments to create a vision what their nation, what their societies can actually look like with an integrated system. Money, to be honest, is usually not so much the problem. And some of you may think, why is that not the case? I think generally it is usually the vision and the leadership, and then usually the money goes with it. Because inclusive societies are better societies. If you are working for a corporation, or for a company, or any type of organization, I would like you to go to your HR department and ask why your company or organization hasn't hired a person with disability or intellectual disability. And I bet the answer you get is, we don't have space for them, what do we do with them, we don't know what to do with them. And that is actually where some of these organizations like Special Olympics and Buddies come in, because they have programs to help employers to actually design employment programs that bring in people with intellectual disability. The same is, of course, the case in schools. Go to your local school or your politician and say, why don't we have an integrated school? Why don't we have a school that brings in people, whether it's, and there we need to make the difference between inclusion and integration. Does anybody know the difference of that? Does anybody know the difference between inclusion and integration? One person, so, you say? So the difference is you bring a person from a special school into a regular school, and you put people with disability or especially intellectual disability into a different room than the other people are in. That's integration, because they're all at one school. What we want to see is inclusion. What does that mean? Everybody in the same room in the school. Everybody in the same room. That is a lot of effort to make that work, because that actually costs money, because you need to educate and train the teachers. You need to educate and train the whole education system. You need to create a curriculum that allows to do that. And then again, organizations like Special Olympics or Best Buddies are actually providing these solutions already. So the point is, the solutions are there. It's usually not about the money, and we're still having a dilemma not having an inclusive system. So I think that is generally a problem, because when you work for a company and you have people with intellectual disability hired, this makes a good employer. And if you're out looking for a job and you get hired by a company that has intellectual disability people hired, then that means they care, they are a good company, and usually people with ID, we call them people with IDD, also bring in a lot of fun. So I think that is something that corporates can do, really, to think, how can we include them and provide employment opportunities for people with IDD? school system. So I like you to go out and leave your ignorance here in this room. It's something that, one of the things I don't like you to take away from this event is to leave your ignorance in this room about people with intellectual disability and go out when the sun shines again, when you come out of this door, you go out and you open your mind and heart to think, what is it I can do personally or as an influencer to promote inclusion? That's what I like you to do. That's what I like you to take away from this session. So that is when you go out to say, who do I know who has intellectual disability? What can I do? Can I influence my employer or my school to create a more inclusive system? Where can you go out and volunteer? And it doesn't have to be large organizations like Special Olympics or Best Buddies. There are a lot of small initiatives that really create a lot of impact and impulse. Organizations like this are usually volunteer-driven. They need all the help they get. It's not only about the money. The biggest problem today for social type of organizations, volunteer-driven organizations, is actually finding the volunteers to run the organization. So go out, ask yourself, where can I inform myself and get involved and make a difference? So that is really the message I try to convey.
And that is an amazing message. That is, thank you so much, Kay. I would like to go back to Stephen, since you're with us, Stephen, and thank you for that. Because you've heard the three experiences, the three motivators, and from a company, from a business perspective, would you say that inclusion is really on the way, that we're able to work together, that whenever we gather, like here, and we listen to people like Thandeka, Miguel, and Kay, do we then merge? Do we then create something new? Is there a way forward?
I think that if I just go back, I think 1 week, we had an event in Neiva University where certain companies renewed the protocol of inclusion with a public signature that they stand behind in having more inclusion to the companies. And I believe that about 30 companies renewed, of which Ageas as well. There were new companies joining the protocol, which have clear statements that inclusion is part of the strategy and that we have to adapt, having more people with different capabilities into our company. Sometimes words are used for these people which I don't really like, so I normally say they have special capabilities, special characteristics, and I do believe that there's a tendency and surely something, because indeed what has been said is true. A company with a very high gender equality, with inclusion, with an open culture is beneficial also, and now I'm talking as a CEO, is beneficial for profits, because you can actually adapt your products. There's a lot of input, there's a lot of insight, which otherwise you do not have. But I really see that there is a tendency. Is it quick enough? I don't think so. I think it should be exponentially going faster. But there's a clear attention of companies, yes.
Do you believe that raters asking all the ESG fulfillment to companies help really promote these motors, help speeding up what needs to be done?
Well, I have on some of these questionnaires that you have to fill in, I have my doubts, but it is clear that they help moving the organization and moving society. That is clear. Sometimes I have doubts on the reasons which lay below their ratings, because it's a business model. They also make profits out of it, and that's sometimes questionable. But it's clear that having that has moved society, companies ahead towards that direction, clearly.
The compromise is changing, yeah. Thandeka, I'd like to go back to you. Because it's like two worlds we're talking about. So when we're talking about inclusion here, and when we're talking about fighting colorblind exclusion also, and Miguel has had this experience of going throughout the world, experiencing different approaches to colorblind people. But you're dealing with the simple, basic first step in school, right? So it's a lot of steps behind. Do you feel that there's a connection, north-south, or do you feel that we're speaking the same language, that we're all going forward at the same pace?
Well, we're definitely not all going forward at the same pace. I mean, we're starting at different levels of of inclusion and exclusion, and I mean particularly well, not particularly, but in many African countries, life is difficult as it is for children who don't have any disabilities or anything like that. And so when you're looking at everybody, is always like always ones with disabilities are left even further behind than the ones who don't have disabilities. And I mean, I know for a fact that if a child isn't going to be going to school, partly because there are no facilities or any for the facilities are so poor for children who don't have any issues, and so for ones who have disabilities like color blindness or even hearing problems, we have for the most part, we don't have those facilities. So where we still have such a long way to go to even try to level the playing field from the right from the start, where it's like starting a race. I mean, if you were talking about having all the countries in the world having a race, then African countries for the most part would be like they'd have one of their legs tied to their hands, and so they'd have to be hopping whilst the Western nations are running, and so they're so much further ahead, and that's a problem for our world.
Of course, I see you want to jump in, Kay. Go ahead.
Yes, and I'm so glad you're bringing that bad example with the leg tied to a tree, because I personally experienced this. We had a very local Special Olympics event in Uganda, and the family, who has a tough life already anyway, had to put chains on the leg of their son because they feared he would run away. And it was really through the Special Olympics local activities, all of a sudden playing football, running, that person really showed the family, because that is another word anyway, but showed the family that the ability that the person had. And I think it's important to talk about not the disability, but the ability, and we have low ability and high ability. But I mean, you're so right, bringing up that example. I mean, it's almost like you were at the event, because this was one of the most shocking experiences in my life. And as a European, you think, holy moly.
It happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So your father was a great supporter of Special Olympics, generally speaking, and so I think there's a bit of tide. Thank you for that. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Well, I will have to thank you all. I would like to have a last round of a quick answer, but when you were invited to this World Gathering, these kind of conferences, they're not that common, but they're starting to happen all around, and we're on time now, so we're over time now. What was your expectation? In one sentence, what did you expect from World Gathering? And we can start by Miguel. You were the last.
I confess, if you ask me if imagine a few years ago when I decided to create ColorADD, if I imagine the impact, no. But I always say that I only create 5 symbols. All the process is made through the society, through our partners, and make me believe that it's possible to create a better world. But this is not a journey for one person only, together. And I think that the concept of co-creation is the base for the future, and I believe in the future, and I believe, of course, in a colorful world for all. And all of these opportunities make me feel that today is not necessary to be a big problem to be solved. If us, as a singular person, do our part, someone someday, if I need to help me, there is one to resolve my problem.
Step by step.
Yes.
Thank you. Stephen, do you want to jump in? We're ahead of time. We're out of time already.
Well, it's difficult to jump in from a screen on stage, but firstly, I think also my dear friend Miguel, who is there on stage, I think it's 6 or 7 years that we are partnering already with ColorADD, and it's fantastic to see what's going on. And I think that's one of the messages I believe of the one of the platforms is singing the gospel. And I believe by singing the gospel, people pick up ideas, can connect, and can also introduce it and know that things exist. It's spreading the gospel.
Thank you so much. Thandeka, I'm sorry. Would you like to jump in what did you expect from World Gathering?
Well, what I thought I would get would be people who might not have heard our story hear it and be interested in it and think that they could do something and make a difference. And so the opportunity just to have people's ears where you normally don't get them is huge. And so I really do appreciate being here. Well, technically being there. Yeah, it really was just another platform, another place to share some of the stories that are part of our world. And this world belongs to all of us. And as you said, and we sink or swim together. That I think that's the and when we understand that, I think that helps us move everybody forward.
Thank you so much. That's enhancing people's voice. Okay, wrapping it up.
Yes, I would say, an event like this typically brings people together who believe in the core of what this is about. Mm-hmm. So it's important that we come together, we get motivated, but it's more important to go out and understand what each of us have to do, because when we come back together next year and discuss the same things and nothing has happened, we didn't do a good job. So the question is, what happens between tonight, when this finishes,
and a year from now,
and next year when we meet again? So then I think, there's a lot of storytelling, and I promise then we actually have a person up here with an intellectual disability or colorblind to share their stories, because it's great for us to talk about this, but the story, I tell you, gets much better when they talk about it.
Thank you so much. We'll meet again next year. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.